what I'd like to do is I'm going to, just to kind of get our discussion started, I'm going to bring up a slide from Dave's presentation. Into looking at this list right now, and based on the type of teaching that you're doing within the sustainability space, um, when I look at the first one, for example, flexibility is ingrained in culture. I mean, is this something, the notion of flexibility, that you are teaching in your courses right now, or what are some of the other skills that you see right there that you think would be really important to in your teaching focus?
Yeah, and I'm particularly intrigued by the second one, like local focus really is the important point like we want to emphasize in sustainability, because it's something like we want to, for example, the example Dave gave us is that you want to source locally, you want to serve your customers also locally. That's not just something that's good for local businesses, it's also like we are reducing our overall ecological footprint, so we do not source our materials from a faraway distance, which really increase our ecological footprint really hugely. So that's something I think is very important, and also that kind of stand out from the list of 7 items I really want to stress.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Dave, let me kind of jump back to you really quick. You have seen a lot of students and interns, particularly through Bethesda Green's intern fair every year. What are some of the skills and the skill sets that you think they are strongest at when they come into those programs? And also, what are the skill sets you think that they're weakest at that maybe could be addressed in a teaching environment?
It's an interesting question.
And I'll pull up the list again just for reference.
Yeah, so first I want to reiterate what Yen Chun was talking about, because I think she's quite right about the need for local. There's many benefits about local. One is that people would get engaged when it's their community, but there are also a number of environmental benefits as well. And you're talking about, she's mentioned local sourcing. There's, with food, for example, there's a whole need to kind of recreate supply chains for food because we don't have them in place anymore. We've gone to a very large industrial size. So, in a lot of ways, these kinds of hubs that we're talking about are rebuilding some of the infrastructure from ground up, and it takes a lot of folks to do that. And it can only happen locally because, as I said earlier, each place has a unique set of needs. So I appreciate her comments. Local is very important. Regarding the students, we've had a lot of success and really enjoyed working with a lot of the students. I spoke a little bit about the Fields of Green internship fair. And, I think it's quite funny when we have this event, I come in and I'm not dressed uncasually right now, but we would come in and we're kind of a casual professional, even for Washington D.C. These students would come in, and most of the students, almost to a T, the young men all had ties and suits on, and the young ladies were dressed up, and they were handing out resumes, and they really took this job search seriously. It was really exciting to see that, and part of it I give attributes to the universities for promoting this. But there's a young generation who I think understands the challenge of the job market right now. It is a very difficult market from when we were growing up, or at least my period. And I think they're going to have to work a little bit harder in some ways, especially because some of the jobs that they're looking for probably don't even exist right now. So in other words, the job market will be very different in 10 years than it is right now. So I think the students right now are looking for any kind of opportunity. They're learning about professionalism. They're excited. I think having a set of sustainability skills is very important, and it goes back to one of the earlier slides, broad. So that doesn't just mean broad: food, energy, water. That means science, business, writing, critical thinking, and so forth are very important things. And I think we see a lot of very good students coming in. I'm not going to make a judgment on the overall students. I don't know, but the ones that are finding our organizations are really top notch. I think they have really gone above and beyond. They're willing to volunteer. They like to participate in things. They're very open, to whatever you suggest. They need to get practical experience. From a weakness area, It's very, very different. I don't want to show my age here, but I'm not. The social media, the cultural differences of the millennials and the younger students are quite different, and they operate quite differently now with using handheld devices and others. So I'm not going to say it's a weakness. I'm just going to say it's very different than the methodology that I grew up with, and I think it's really important to bring those kind of skill sets, that they bring something very valuable to the equation, but it's not necessarily what a lot of businesses and organizations think right now. So sometimes there's a disconnect with where the younger folks are and the needs of the existing workforce.
Right. That reminds me of a Wall Street Journal article. I said that one of the biggest complaints that employers have is within the communication with the millennials. They said, if you have something to say, just call me on the phone and say it. You don't have to email or text or anything like that. Let's just talk to each other. So that's one of the things. And, we have to realize, of course, that for their generation, that, they're digital natives and those types of technologies are second nature. That's almost like, having a conversation as, maybe older generations would conceive of it, using text.